Brian Kerr, a pretty comfortable victory in the end for Manchester United. I know we spoke about some of the issues and that kind of thing during the game, but this good run of form United are on at the moment, they're up to within 3 points now of the Champions League places. Is there anything, one particular thing you can kind of put your finger on, or is it a case where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is proving himself now as a really good manager?
I think it's too early to say that. I mean, they're not having a very good season overall. In the Europa League, they're still going and they should beat Bruges in the next round, but that's their level at the moment. They're playing the Europa League, which they haven't had to put out strong teams in, but yet in the Premier League they've not been able to beat too many teams. You look, they've lost 8 games out of 27, isn't it? So you're losing 1 game in 3, so not having a great season by any means. On a bit of a run at the moment, but they need to continue that and keep going. I mean, they're in a scrap for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th place, and maybe 4th. You mentioned they're 3 points behind Chelsea. They're just ahead of Spurs and Sheffield United. They're out of today's win. Sheffield United are having a very good season, but that's because they're just been promoted this season and they're delighted they've got to 40 points. Spurs are having a very poor season, would be the feeling of most people that are interested in Spurs. Another team that lose a game in every 3, which, top clubs shouldn't be losing a game in every 3. Their target should be not to lose at all, but if you're losing about, I'd say, 1-8 and 1-9, then you're challenging for titles. But Manchester United are way off that at the moment, but they're having the basis of a good run, I'd say. And today's win was a good win, it was a convincing win, but they got the break of that disallowed goal for Watford. Watford came out strong at the start of the second half and outplayed Manchester United in that first 12 minutes, I thought. The key turning point was the disallowed goal. Troy Deeney's one from the corner kick from Hughes, which was a very good chance for them in the build-up to goal, and then for Martial to get the second goal for United not too long after. I'm not sure how many minutes after it was, but it wasn't too long, and I think that knocked the heart out of Watford, and they kind of died a bit after that, and United won convincingly. Great goal by Greenwood to wrap it up, and they probably could have had another goal or two if they'd pushed it on.
There were question marks over Bruno Fernandes and I suppose the outlay from Manchester United, 55 million plus most likely 25 million in add-ons, taking him up to 80 million. It might seem a little bit too much for a player of his standard, but to be fair to him today, he looked like he was trying to get forward, getting on the front foot as much as possible, but as we said during the commentary, there was a lot of misplaced passes. So if you're his coach, you're his manager, what kind of work do you do with him over the next few days? Do you encourage him to keep doing what he's doing, or do you try and...
Yeah, I think he's got to adapt to the pace of the game. From the league he's playing in the Portuguese league, most games Sporting would be involved in, apart from matches with Porto and Benfica probably, and maybe Braga now and again. They wouldn't be under pressure. They'd be dominating games, and he'd be able to float about in that number 10 role and have pot shots and try to play players in. Wouldn't have to defend with too much intensity. He would find the Premier League a lot quicker, a lot faster, and the role of a midfield player has always been the role of a midfield player. You have to get up and back quickly around the pitch, make tackles, win the ball, pass the ball, keep it well. You got to run hard. Then if you can get some shots a goal and score some goals, that's part of your role. But the basics of the game always are maintained, irrespective of what your position is, whether you play it as a 4, a 6 or an 8 as they call it nowadays, or a 10. So he has got to adapt to that. Today he was able to get away without having to do any defensive work. They had enough, Manchester United, with the 2 sitting behind them, with Matic in particular playing the defensive role, to Fred Matic cleaned up, tidied up, kept it moving. He was able to get on with it, and he was quite inventive when he was on the ball. He's certainly skillful, but you got to. I think you've also got to play the right pass, not always the forward pass is the right pass. You don't always risk the ball by playing it forward and hoping that someone's going to get in and get it across or get a shot and goal. Sometimes it's the right thing to keep it and to wait for the opportunity to play that forward ball around the corner. I thought he played it too often today. So he certainly showed ability, showed skill, took the penalty well, be it that it's one that I think shouldn't be. I think the lawmakers should have a little look at that one where the player does a bit of a hop, step and jump before he kicks it, and the goalkeeper dives with, he thinks his run is going to follow through, and he's watching his body position and his run up, and Foster dived to the right early today, and it allowed Fernandes to tuck it neatly in down to his left, took the penalty well. United have had the problem, they haven't had the problem getting penalties, they've had more than anyone else. That's their 10th of the season in the league, which is higher percentage in 27 games, but they've had a problem scoring them. So he scored. I think that makes a 5 out of 10, maybe 6 out of 10. But they have had the problem with scoring some of the penalties. So it was a promising performance, but I'm not convinced. I don't expect him to convince in his first half season. Let's say I think next season will be more important for him.
Whatever about United getting better, and they are on a good run at the moment, Brian. But it always feels like, they're not just they're not a million miles away from the next defeat or the next bad result. Like, what I'd like to know maybe is what the results that they're getting at the moment, how much will that boost the morale and the confidence of players, and actually start feeding into, the quality and how good they actually are.
Well, the measure of how good you actually are is your position in the table, I would say, after 10 or 12 games in the league. Then you get an idea. Now, they've played double that, and they've still got, 11 games to go after today. Is that right? On 27, it'll be 11 games to go. So there's a good part of the season still left. But, nobody can dispute their position in the table at the moment. Liverpool are miles ahead of everyone else. They've only dropped 2 points. Manchester United helped that by getting a draw against Liverpool. But they seem to be able to produce the goods against the better rated teams, and Chelsea performance the other night proved that too. But what they got to do is have the consistency against others, against Sheffield United, against Wolves, against the more middling teams and the teams near the bottom. Aston Villa, we saw them drawing here against Aston Villa too. So that's the proof. With your position in the table, the number of points you have, and your overall results. I mean, the last 8 games this season, that tells you that they're short, and they're not good enough. They're not consistent enough, and they're way away from where Manchester United were used to being under Alex Ferguson, and they've a bit to do to get. But what they can do in the remainder of this season, I mean, they're still going in the cup competitions, and they can achieve stuff this season. If they could achieve the 4th place in the league, it'd be very satisfactory. If they could win 1 or 2 of the cup competitions, I think that overall would be very satisfactory.
I know there's a lot of talk about the 5th place coming into play in the Premier League with regards to qualification for the Champions League because of Manchester City's possible 2-year ban, but I think we all know they are going to appeal that ban, which means then that the ban will be deferred until the following season. So I think whatever happens, it's going to be top 4, isn't it? So with that in mind, are United going to get, is your gut feeling now, will they qualify for the Champions League next season? Because essentially that's what it's all about for United, to get back to the top table of European football.
Well, they can do it through
Europa League as well,
which they've done before under Mourinho. Now they'll have a run for their money. A lot of good teams still left in that this season, but we know that the Premier League is probably above the standard of the other leagues. I think the German league seems to be in good shape this season. Looking at Leipzig's performance against Spurs the other night, they've looked very good. Dortmund looked good. Bayern Munich, I've been sceptical about the German teams in recent seasons other than Bayern Munich, but I think the Premier League teams can still have reasonable hope. We ended up, we had an all-English final recently, Arsenal the final, and Chelsea Arsenal final, but can United win it? Yes, they could, but could Wolves win it this year? Yeah. So then you're looking at, can they get 4th place? I think it'll be hard push. There's a big scramble for the 4th place. Chelsea are in fair shape, even though United beat them the other night. They came back from that and beat Spurs comfortably enough yesterday. Sheffield United are in that scramble. Wolves are not too far away from it either. So they can't guarantee it, but they've got 2 fronts where they can fight at least to get there. I think it'll be an important one. I think it would make a difference if they make a Champions League place in terms of their ability to attract. Manchester United will always attract good players and big name players. They'll be able to pay the wages, which I think is probably the most important factor. The second most important factor might be, are you going to play in the Champions League next year? But I think it would be a help if they made it. But not, they're obviously not going to win the league, but they could win one of the other competitions.
And just to ask you finally about Watford, Brian, I have to say when Pearson came in, I always felt that they might get out of trouble, because the one thing they do have is goal scorers, and I suppose it's getting those goal scorers going. Your gut feeling about them as well, I suppose it's a boost for them to get Ismail Assar back today. He's going to be a key player for them. Would your good feeling now be that Watford could still beat the drop? Or will they?
Well, I don't know. I think they've given themselves a real chance, which is a lot better than the position they were in when Nigel Pearson came in. They looked like they were trailed off and they were out of touch. But I think most people looked at them and said they've got good players and they've potential to be a very good side. They finished 11th last year. Nobody predicted they were going to have a very poor season this season. They've got a lot of quality. We saw that in the first half today, in the early part of the second half. So they've got a right good chance. I think it'll be tough for Norwich. I think, Bournemouth are around there, Aston Villa around there. There's a few more. Brighton are not far away. I think Newcastle will be all right on 31 points. Another 7 or 8 points should be able to get that. Newcastle's home form, they're capable of eking out points. But Watford I think they have a very good chance of escaping, and he's done it before. Pearson did it with Leicester before, where they won 6 of their last 8 games a few years back when it looked like they were almost buried. So I would think my gut feeling is that they'll get out of it.
Great, so thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Steve.